Torah Yom Chamishi Parshas Torah Shnas Novshinai Dalit Shir Tiferes Avik. The Rambam in Igeras Taimon writes the following: Shekvar Yiftichonu Haboirei Yisbarach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu guaranteed us, promised us. Rambam relates to a shtickle Ka'odam hanichnis orev lechaveiroi, like a fellow guarantees a loan or obligation of his friend. That's called a real standing behind. That's I'll try to help you if he doesn't pay up. It's all the arif. The dailonu barvusay. Hashem's arvus is enough for us. Look at Rambam. We don't need 4 aravim, 2 aravim. 1 arvus for Hashem's good enough. V'hoidiyonu, and he let us know. Shekol mi she'omad al Har Sinai. Anyone who stood at Har Sinai, the entire Klal Yisrael and all the Neshamas, Shehei ma'aminim b'nevuas Moshe. They believe in nevuas Moshe Rabbeinu, b'chol ma shebo al yodai, anything that comes from his hand. Haim, they, u'bneihem, and their children. U'vnei bneihem, and their children's children. Ad olam. Hear that? Amazing. Where did the Rambam get this from? Who state this? Shekein Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisbarach. Because so said HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisbarach. Hinei anoichi bo elecha. Behold, I am coming to you. Ba'av onon, in the thickness of the cloud. Ba'avur yishma ha'om b'dabri moch. So that the people will hear when I speak to you. And what the result's going to be of that? V'gam b'cho yaminu la'olam. And in Moshe they will believe in you la'olam. These words, v'gam b'cho yaminu la'olam, state whoever was there, whoever was Shemei Hashem, is going to, they and their children ad olam, will accept the nevuah, it's Moshe Rabbeinu. Lefikach, therefore, so the Rambam, yesh l'chol adas, you have to know, shekol mi shenoto miderech hadas hanusuna b'mayim b'no. Anyone who strays from the derech of the religion that was given to us at that maimed, she'enoi mizera ha'anoshim ha'heim. He's not a descendant of someone who stood at Sinai. We didn't see you at Sinai. You weren't seen, your granddaddy wasn't seen, and your elder Baba wasn't there. The Chein Am Rabbi Yisrael Zal, Kol HaMistapik B'Nevuah. Anybody who questions Nevuah, Lo Yomdu Avoisav Al Har Sinai. It means the lesson became so ingrained in the genes of a human being, became so inscribed, Chokuk Al Luach Liboy La'olam. Now it's interesting because there is a mitzvah. Some say it's a mitzvah saseh, one of the Taryag. Some say it's a mitzvah, it's not one of the Taryag. But it's a mitzvah to remember the Maimed Har Sinai. That's interesting. A person has to remember the Maimed Har Sinai. You know why the pasuk says? Pen tishkach, lest you forget. That means it's shayach. There's no guarantee. Come to Chayes. There's no guarantee that the Maimed of Har Sinai will not be forgotten. That can be forgotten by some. And that, the Torah says, Shmor nafshecha moed. Watch yourself, guard yourself exceedingly. Then, this result of Har Sinai, that the Vuas Moshe Rabbeinu is emes, that's ingrained, that's not shaykh. It's not subject to shikha, to being forgotten. You don't have to remember that there was given Moshe Rabbeinu. When the Nevi'as, we saw the Nevi'as, that's in the genes of Christ. Even though there was a V'chaya Olam not habisaychenu, it's implanted in us, aber Yisham L'cha Pentishka. Now what your forefathers see, you have to tell it over to your children, generations, transmitters. But this Nakuda, that's what I hear from this Rambam, Chiddush, Nifl. Play. That means to say, it's a natural phenomenon. Today, Taco, we see a matziv, how people reject and they question Maimed Har Sinai. Now you have to know that Maimed Har Sinai is not only based on emunah. Maimed Har Sinai is based on facts. That's number one. You have to know this yesod. There is emunah and there is yediyah. What is the difference between yediyah and emunah? Yediyah means knowledge. Emunah means I believe. I believe. What's the chilik? The chilik is as follows. If I tell you I have in my pocket 20 singles. So if you saw me putting 20 singles in my pocket, and I tell you, these 20 have in my pocket. So now, do you have a emunah that I have 20 singles in my pocket? No. You have yediyah. But if you didn't see me putting in 20 singles in my pocket, and I tell you I have 20 singles, that's called emunah. Emunah is totally in belief. What's the chilik between belief and knowledge? Knowledge comes from the moyach. Knowledge is something which comes from a person's brain. It's something he saw or he knows. It's a rational thing. Now, let's say I tell you 2 and 2 is 4. That's yediyah, that's not emunah. Now, when I was younger, the first time I heard that 2 and 2 is 4, it was emunah. Because I didn't know why 2 and 2 is 4. I thought 2 and 2 is 22. And I said, why? So, the father would proceed to shake candies or apples, and I would have used already, put on the table 2, and another 2. He said, now, I'm going to say, oh, that's yediyah. But, emunah is, you got to trust me. Somebody asks you 361 times 361. I don't say you can't turn it into a yediyah, but right now, if I tell you the answer, like for example, I told you not long ago, if you take 9 ones, 1, 9 times, and times 9 ones, what's the answer you're going to get? The answer you're going to get is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, that's a moon right now. You have no idea. Well, if you put on paper, or you cook a calculator has a lot of, most guys don't have such long decimals, you'll see that's the answer. Then it's easy. So, Maimer Har Sinai is something which can be forgotten. But if it's transmitted from father to son and son to grandson and on, then it's two things. It's emunah and yediyah. Now you would say, why is that emunah? Well, emunah we'd say it's natural, it's emunah. I'm trusting somebody. But why is that yediyah? How does that become knowledge? Because if somebody comes to me and says to me, I've spoken to many people who challenge the veracity of Maimer Har Sinai. They said, I don't believe that. I said, whether you believe it or not, it's knowledge. So you have to understand, it's a very big aside. If you understand this, you might understand something. And you know how to present yourself and sound intelligent on a rare occasion. Might help. So first you say, my father told it to me, and my father's father told it to me. And it goes back to thousands of generations, hundreds of generations. So I know, Alamuna. But is there any idea for that? The answer is yes, there is. You know why? Because you have to know what establishes Yediyah. Mathematics establishes Yediyah. For example, 2 and 2 is 4, that's Yediyah, that's knowledge, right? But there are other things that establish facts. What is the greatest fact establisher universal? Eidos. The one thing that every country in the world, even the dictators, even third world countries, throughout history from the beginning of time, there always was a court system. And the court system is based on evidence. They don't want to hear, I feel, or I think. They want to have knowledge. How do you establish facts? Did I establish facts? Witnesses. Witnesses are the biggest raya that exists. Not just another raya. It's amazing. For example, if this DNA, people challenge that. The Torah says, Al Pishnayim Eidim Yakum Dava. That's an accepted thing. 1 or 2 witnesses, and if it's this and that, could establish a fact beyond the shadow of it. It's like you think about that, it's mind-boggling. And it's universally accepted. And it's universally, it's mamash a pellet. Those people don't think about it. They read it, what it says on the cereal box, that this is the cereal of great, powerful supermen. They read it again, they take another bite, they try to bulk up their muscles to feel if it's getting somewhere, and when it's not, they figure you gotta eat a lot of boxes. But no, that's some difference. But what establishes, evidence establishes if somebody saw an event and that person gives it over to you, now I know that event took place. That's called Yediyah. Universally it's accepted. So when a guy tells me, he argues with me, you know what I tell him? You never went to law school, right? Obviously. And you probably don't have a rational mind. You work with emotion. Because obviously, did you ever take note of the fact that the one place everybody in the universe needs evidence, factual evidence, not circumstantial or what you emotional evidence, is a law of the courtroom, and the one thing that established beyond a shadow of a doubt is Eidos better than any DNA. or otherwise. You know why? That's fact. And once you know that, you say, it's a pleasure. I used to have to argue with these tipshim I was talking to over and over. Like, who said that? I said, don't ever work for the court system. If you want to work in a courthouse, the closest you should get is holding a map. Because you could never hold what you call. When somebody invited me many years ago to give a class in the federal courthouse, somebody said, would you be willing to engage jurists, lawyers, and other members of the judiciary? Would you be willing to present a case of Torah min hashamayim versus lahavdil Torah not min hashamayim? I said, absolutely. The fellow said, before I tell you to present this case, you're not speaking to a bunch of dummies from Fairmount Temple. He said, you're not speaking to a bunch of idiots who you're telling, it's real, man. And I'll say, oh, they say, holy cheese, holy sheep. I love it. No, they're going to go, they want to hear facts. Are you ready to establish fact? Don't tell them, didn't you know Torah Sinai? They don't want to hear that. Got facts. I said, fine. So he gave me a stack of tapes first that were from his law school, this fellow, on how you establish evidence. He said, listen to these tapes, and you stay within the guidelines, and you'll be safe. So I listened to the tapes, and I said, you know what, I think I can take this out. Now, the guy told him, listen, you're never going to see people, they're all going to come with big yellow pads, they're going to be taking notes, and then they're going to chop you up and spit you out. I said, obviously, you don't believe that there's evidence, and you're trying to feed me to the dogs. I said, I appreciate that. I said, but now I wasn't the first year in my career, and I already had thought about it and discussed it with some smart people, and I thought I was prepared, and I remember I did. And I went to them beforehand, and I said, listen, I said, what I'm here to present to you is knowledge, the fact that Torah is min hashamayim, and it could not have emanated from a human mind. And this nonsense, this hogwash, that the reformed, or the deformed, or these people who call themselves conservative, question that, is based on such narishkeit and such emotion, it has no place in a courtroom, it has place in a bar room, where you, after a few drinks, then you start to think anything you want to think. And if you throw a couple of drugs in there, you really are free to believe and think what you want. You can imagine that the glass on the, the dish is a little midget human being dancing, looks like an hourglass. You can have all kind of imagination. But that is what it is. And I remember they were blown away. I said, doesn't that sound surprising to you? Yes. I'm here to present to you evidence, I said. It's going to take me a couple of weeks. I'm going to lay the case out, what the facts are, and then we're going to establish the facts. And then I reminded them, that's something I heard on that tape, about something they teach you about lawyers. They said, what is the purpose of a lawyer to defend criminals? And most people say they're paid liars. But you have to realize there's a basis for it. You know why? Because they put an scene. They show you a scene, whether it's human scene or a screen, of somebody committing a crime on somebody else. And they say, watch this scene as it unfolds, and then we're going to give you questions to answer. And then they give each one a series of questions. And you answer the questions, and it's mind-boggling how everybody just watched the scene, and there are almost no two answers in the room that are the same. Now, what do they show from that? That you all saw that, and you all didn't see, you all saw the fact, you all watched the event. Ri is the greatest raya of Satan, and you don't have the fact. That's where a lawyer comes in to try to establish what really happened, what you really saw, did you really see, did you not really see, and okay. So the question over here is that, could you imagine if they showed such an episode and everybody watched carefully and they answered all the questions perfect? They said it's not shaykh in human history. Not shaykh. Now what if these people were to go out and tell this over to another 100 people? Each one would tell the story as they saw it. Then they would question the second group of people about the story. The story would change drastically. It will become like the famous telephone game. It will become garbled in the transmission, and it would get diminished. At the end, the last group of people, you ask him, what was the story? The guy would say it was an Italian from Sicily making spaghetti. They forget, and no shaykh standing crying. He said, here we have an event that took place a couple thousand years ago. In the year 2448, from Bria Sa'iva, which I was just to add just for a little tinsel. I know you guys think it was millions and millions and billions of years old, but that's because your mother was poor at math and your father was even weaker at math. So the numbers game to you guys is just one big numbers game. I saw 1 million crickets. I saw thousands of ants. I saw thousands of people with millions of cars. And millions of years old also. I said, we can't, as we Jews like to keep exact numbers. But that's for another shmooze, another discussion. I'll establish that fact for you also. However, I said, but this, your facts. How do we have an episode take place in the desert, witnessed by millions of people, and the millions of people give this over to their children, give this over to their children, and then to their children. And the tradition goes down and handed down, and there's no one that says there are 11 dibbers. As the Jews got scattered throughout the world, it became further and further from Har Sinai. Somebody was bound to say there was not 10 commandments, it was only 11. Somebody's bound to say there's 15. I've seen a book that discusses how many commandments are there in the Goyish world. One thing for sure, it's not 613. And the book that I saw was hilarious. It went from 800 to 500 to 1,400 to 1,800. So many different shittas about how many mitzvahs there are. And that's only recent. Next to Mountain Torah, this Christianity is a very new religion, and its Torah is very recent. And you don't know how many mitzvahs there are? You'll ask anybody in the world how many mitzvahs in the Torah. Taryag. There are machlokas Rishonim. What are the Taryag? But none of the big ones. No one says Shabbos is, and somebody said Shabbos isn't. That no one says. And the Ramban just says you're supposed to include maybe, for example, remembering Har Sinai. The Rambam said, no, it's not a mitzvah to include in the Taryag. It's a mitzvah, not one of the Taryag. There's rules of Taryag. But, I tell people, and here we have the tradition going down and being handed down, and over, and everybody saying 613, 5 books of Moses. Not 6, not 5.5, not 4.5, Not there's people trying to get nuances of Mishnah Torah, it's a thing of Chadorah, tries to make the Yukim Shtiyot Evel. This is all, you know, looking to obfuscate the subject. I said, whether you believe your daddy or not, that's the facts. Now it's a Pella. This earth my Zayda. Ask my Zayda, what's one of the greatest rayas that Torah is emes? It's very simple. He said, the Smirch, for years, Mamish tried to belittle and undermine and demean the Yidden and their religion, she'ein kamois. Now the most logical thing that they should have said is, what every second Yid is saying right now. What do they say? It's a hoax. They made it up. What are the conservative right? The guy wrote a book in after 1910, between 1910 and 1920, and he writes a book. You know, it's lav daf. The whole story of Har Sinai is a marshal. Doesn't really happen. Really, the Rabbanim came along. They wanted to put it a marshal so people should identify more with the reality. What rat did you hit your head up? What kind of Irish head is it? You think the whole Catholic Church, the whole church that tried for years to undermine Yiddishkeit could have never came up with that? You know what they said? This is what they said. Of course there was Makbeh. Of course there was Har Sinai. Of course there's Chamisha Chumshin Torah. Of course there's 24 Sfarim and Tanakh. But you know what? We're going to write a new one. They don't say Hashem said the new one. They don't say there was a second event of Har Sinai. They came up with something that they wrote after the fact. They wrote called the new something or other. This is nonsense. Are you out of your mind? You're going to bring me something that a human being wrote to compete with what Hashem wrote? Why did you come up and say, instead of saying that we're devils, and that we're sinners, and that we're devil worshippers, and we're devil this, and we're devil that, we're deviled eggs, why didn't you say simple? It's a hoax that made it up. That's what I would say. If you would ask me, if I would meet a Christian, I met many of them, and I argued this point with them. I said, you guys made it up. We got the monopoly on the reality. We're the only guy who has the truth. Because our truth was, when Hashem gave us the Torah and He appeared to us, there was millions of witnesses. It wasn't in secret, it wasn't in private, it wasn't trust or you. It was clear witnesses. You have to understand that there's no zach like we have. It's facts. There's no facts like that. You made it up. Therefore, a person has to know all the Muslims in Mishagoyim, they tried to come up with this undermined Tapella. I had a few discussions with Muslims. I asked them, how do you reconcile? I went through the Chumash with them. It's some knowledgeable ones. Remember, a guy explained to me that you say the story happened with Yitzchak, that king. But we believe it happened with Yishmael. We say just the opposite. Hashem rejected Yishmael. I said, are you joking? Hashem rejected Yitzchak, and he's the one that the son of that king was Yishmael. I said, that is a good one. I said, that I like. At least that's original. That makes sense. I said, but it wouldn't explain that how come for so many years the descendants, your mother, that this Muslim business didn't come about prior to Yiddishkeit. I said, who was in Mitzrayim? Was it you in Mitzrayim or we were in Mitzrayim? Oh, the whole Pharaoh story. It's amazing. My grandfather told me that it says in the Quran, but she read, he told me it says over there that the king of Mitzrayim was named Haman. You know, it's like basic knowledge history that the guys in charge of Mitzrayim were pharaohs, not Hamans. You understand? But Haman was the guy in Mitzrayim. They made up stories. I said, so I understand. So we went to Mitzrayim, and we got the Torah, and then and what happened to you and Yitzchak's kids? And Yishmael's kids who were who were from Akedes Yitzchak, I said the Torah says the one who went against Yitzchak was Zeicha of Aki Yadaki. You heard my tell your children are going to inherit the thing, and you're going to get the Torah. You're going to get Yisrael. What happened again? You after we were there for years, you woke up out of under some rock and crawled out. One of your guys over there, when he took time off from all his Zionists that he was chasing, and the guy come out and he was shaking like a turd, the guy, and the guy said, believe in me, I'm a prophet. And I said, what? You don't look like a prophet. He said, yeah, take his knife out. You understand? Now I'm a prophet. Now I'm a prophet. You're a prophet. You're a prophet. You understand? Whoever didn't believe him, you shafted him. You understand? Let's make him a prophet. Establish prophecy. So the guy makes up prophecy. I said, so you say this, years later you woke up, and you said, how come you never said the same thing? Why don't you say the whole thing is over? You know why? Because it's facts, and it's such facts. You have to know it was. We're the only religion that's not based on trust me. You have to know it's such factual, it's unbelievable. So the Velt has a kasha. That's the Rambam says. So I'm telling you, it's shaykh to forget that fact. The pasuk says, "Yishavu and tishkach shmona shemay." Talk about it, because you can forget it. Even though it's a fact, you can forget it. And you see Mariah today, a lot of people forget it. But Nevuas Moshe is in the genes, Rambam says. Nevuas Moshe will never be mukhish, never be denied. And here we have Kairach denied. What's a shot? How could Kairach deny it? And we know for sure Kairach was at Har Sinai. It says Kolam is stopping. Kairach challenged Moshe. He said Moshe made up stuff. Moshe said it's the Nevuah, he challenged it. And Moshe said, I didn't make it up. You're going to tell me that Kairach's parents, and Kairach himself wasn't at Sinai? They were at Sinai. Kairach was definitely in the video. In fact, they had front seat row. He was definitely chashuv to the people. The answer is that what the Rambam says, this is an answer that's presented by the Stipler, and Chanan has a Kushai and Teretz, and the V'leisha Shach, is that when it says in the Torah that a person believes, it means he's naturally believes. But when a person has a personal bias, and that bias causes him to reject the reality. There's a thing called, I explain it in psychological terms, it's called cognitive dissonance. What is cognitive dissonance? Cognitive means something you're cognizant of, something you have a clear awareness. It's shaykh for a person to take something that he's cognizant of, it's kloraya, and to behave and create a dissonance. Dissonant means he's makhish and he denies the whole existence. So today, you go there to Yisrael and the Muslims say, just yesterday, one of the head of Fatah came and said, they asked him, what do you think about these 3 kidnapping kids? The other guy said, it's all a play. It's a movie. So what do you mean, he said? Israelis made it up. The Israelis made the whole thing up. No kids were ever taken. Just like the Israelis made up that they had a shaykhis to Yerushalayim before 1948. They found the artifacts under the thing. They planted the artifacts. And the other ones, we got rid of most of them. And became bias. What kind of basement make that fairy tale and then make it up? At least they talk logic. They say Zachin and Dvarim Shel Tam. The God's not bluff. Bluff. Holocaust. What Holocaust? That was a Holocaust. They look you in the face. Holocaust. What Holocaust? I was witnesses. Witnesses. Where's witnesses? Give me a bag. Pass one of those Arab kafiyas. Wrap it up in. I don't see the witnesses. You see witnesses? No. Get a burqa. Put it out. This little slits the eye. It's like Unish. Okay. That's called God. So if a person has a bias, then a person could deny any reality. So the Stipler, if a person eats trade, for example, it's matam liba shalom. If a person has a taiva for something the Torah prohibits, he can't accept that. The Torah prohibits it. So what does he do? He finds an alternative way And what's him doing? He's going to become a kaifer, the Mali is Taifer. At the beginning, he'll be just a little denier, then he'll become a big denier. And this is what it was from Kairach. Kairach had kina, and he had a great desire for covenant. Yes, the covenant he wanted was kahuna, to serve Hashem. But because of that, he became Kasa Moshe. And in order to take revenge and to win Moshe Rabbeinu, he began to engage in kfirah. And to say that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't emes. Now he knew that Moshe Rabbeinu was emes. But he created that cognitive dissonance. Knowingly, he did that in reality. He had a personal agenda to do that. And therefore, when a person does that, you have to know it's garbage. So when I was a young man, I called him up Erev Rosh Hashanah from a very frum family, very chashiv family. Then it's one of the derech, and he came up, stopped, he go. So they asked me if I would get in contact with him. I said, I'll try. So I waited till Erev Rosh Hashanah. I think Rosh Hashanah is a good time to call. Wanted to wish him a good year, a new year. I told him, Erev Rosh Hashanah, oh, I denied that. I denied that. I said, you deny what? You deny that today is Tuesday? What do you deny? You deny that now is the light out, the lights are on. You think somebody put the skylight in the sky? What do you deny exactly? I said, Erev Rosh Hashanah. I said, as great a denier you are, you have to have remember. You definitely do remember Yom Adin. You remember such a thing of their judgment. Every Kol Boy Olam, whether you believe it or not, Kol Boy Olam is Eirim Lefanav Kivnei Marim. I want to wish you a good day. And he said, no, I don't believe. I said, okay, tell me what you don't believe. He said, I have questions that could maybe should. No one has answers. I said, can you give me your best question? Take a deep breath at all. Present me with your best question. And he gave me a question, and I gave an answer. Oh, you have an answer. I said, on that question, it's a silly question. You presented me a chart. Oh, Nietzsche, and Franz Josef, and Franz this, and Franz Herr von Reich, and all that. I told them, Herr von Reich, what do you have to tell? What about Moshe, Aaron, David, Shlomo, Avram Yitzchak, Yaakov? What are you hacking the China? What about Chavetz Chaim and Kivega, Vilna Goyen, and Chaim Volozhin? What are you drinking a cup of some German-sounding names over there? Of one sicko. Oh, you have to call them names. I said, they were sickos. They wrote their own books, each one of these guys, how sick they were. Now, they had the sheafas, what they want to have kids with their mother. I said, that's normal. Most people don't have such kind of thoughts. You understand? These are really sick puppies, you understand? And they're going to ask me kashas on Torah, and these are the Chach Michel, you believe it. So you fell for their kash because you couldn't think of an answer. I gave an answer, so you're disturbed now. But I said, before I hang up, I'm going to ask you one question. I said, tell me, I said, I have a sheet that any guy like you was out in Emerson Koifer, he was like, really, I said, it has to be that, did you go off because of your questions? So were you a regular yeshiva? Regular from family. I know your family said, you know, you can't be machish, your father and tzaddik, your brother was tzaddikim, your brothers and tzaddikim, everybody tzaddikim around here. Choshim, and you're a smart fellow. Who am like you're a smart fellow? Why did it happen? So sometime Yeshem, his father told me, Yeshem was somebody in his family got killed by a car, and that set him off. He told him, did that set you up? I said, no, that was something. So once you had questions, I said, just tell me one thing. Did you eat treif before you had the questions? Or did you eat treif after you sought answers for the questions and you couldn't find any answers? He said, what difference does that make? I said, because I have a sheet. Every guy I met like you, who's a Zaman Kaifer, so you start with Grubba Baltaiva, so I understand why he went off, because he went Baltaiva, the Gemara, I tell him that a lot of people, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that the Yidden worshipped Avodah Zarah, not because the Yidden believed in Avodah Zarah. The Yidden knew Avodah Zarah was a bunch of Maloni Malaki, but they wanted to have a rice. And they couldn't figure out from the Torah how to get a Torah for a rice. The only heter for a rice they had is if they believed in the goddess of love, and the goddess of this, the goddess of this. They started believing all the goddesses. They became as though heterim, and that was their heter for rice. So I understand that, the Titus. But I said, you sound like It got to come from Tim Malik. She said, I'm not going to answer the question directly. I said, oh, why not? Be honest. He said to me, but I will tell you this much. My situation doesn't contradict your philosophy. I told him, have a good new year. You should see the light.